The Galactic Council had made its decision, and the verdict was final. Humanity was exiled. A species too volatile, too reckless, too unpredictable to be trusted with the vast expanse of the galaxy. The Council, an ancient collective of the most powerful and intelligent alien races, had grown tired of humanity's disregard for peace and order. Humanity's push into the stars, a symbol of their growing ambition, had led to too many conflicts. The last straw had been the disastrous conflict with the Regathi, a warrior race whose temper was as legendary as their technology. When humans had destroyed a Regathi cruiser in self-defense, the Council declared humanity a threat to galactic stability, forcing Earth's exclusion from the intergalactic fold. For a brief moment, Earth's inhabitants felt the sting of rejection. They had looked to the stars for hope, for unity, and now they were cast aside, abandoned by the very entities they had once hoped to join. Their dream of a prosperous future among the stars seemed shattered, reduced to the dim hum of distant memories. But this rejection, this exile, did not break humanity. Instead, it ignited something far more dangerous: resolve. In the underground bunkers beneath the dusty plains of Mars, and deep within the abandoned factories of Earth, humans began to work. In secret, they toiled with a single thought in mind: survival. They would not beg for forgiveness. They would not wait for the Council to come to their senses. If the galaxy did not want them, humanity would carve out its own place among the stars. At the helm of this operation was Captain Alicia Hartwell, a former officer in the United Earth Fleet. After her dismissal from active duty, she had become one of the leading figures in the Resistance, a symbol of humanity's defiance. Though her career had been marred by failure during the Regathi incident, she had never lost faith in humanity's ability to overcome any challenge. She had lived through enough battles to understand the cost of survival, but now survival was no longer enough. Humanity would thrive. Beside her was Commander Elias Cade, a man haunted by his past, yet unwavering in his loyalty to the cause. Cade had once led Earth's defense against alien incursions, his name celebrated in every war history book, yet the scar of his failure in the Regathi conflict still gnawed at him. The day the Regathi decimated the last of Earth's orbital defenses, Cade had been forced to retreat, abandoning comrades and civilians alike. Now, in the shadow of his past mistakes, Cade fought not just for humanity, but for redemption. The exiles, from the remnants of the United Earth Federation to various factions from across Earth's fractured nations, joined forces. The egos of presidents and generals fell away, as the shared goal of survival united them. Technology, once considered obsolete, was now the cornerstone of their efforts. Ships were built in the asteroid belt. Weapons were forged beneath the frozen surface of Mars. Earth's new fleet, small but highly advanced, slowly took shape. But even as they worked, a chilling reality set in. The galaxy had not forgotten about humanity. Though the Galactic Council had exiled them, the galaxy's most dangerous races, the Regathi, the Silphar, and the Tolaran, watched with a mixture of disdain and fear. The humans' defiance was a spark in the darkness, and in time, that spark would grow into a flame they would regret underestimating. One evening, as Alicia Hartwell sat alone in the control room of their makeshift headquarters on Mars, a transmission flickered on the screen in front of her. It was a signal, faint but clear, coming from deep within the stars. At first it appeared to be a distress call, but as she decoded the message, her breath caught in her throat. It was a warning. The Council's judgment will not be your only enemy. The Regathi are coming. The silence that followed was suffocating. The fate of humanity was about to take a turn that no one had anticipated. And as the stars flickered outside, Alicia Hartwell knew one thing for certain. Humanity had been exiled, but they were far from finished. For months after the transmission, humanity did what it did best. It adapted. In the hidden labs scattered across Earth and Mars, the exiled scientists, engineers, and military strategists pushed the limits of human ingenuity. Earth's new fleet, composed of hastily constructed ships and reverse-engineered alien tech, grew by the day. The once proud human military had been reduced to a ragtag force, but their determination had become their most formidable weapon. Captain Alicia Hartwell was the spearhead of this transformation. She worked tirelessly to keep morale high, visiting the front lines and commanding the crew as if they were her own family. The wounds of exile ran deep, but Alicia was determined to make sure those wounds didn't define them. She understood that humanity's strength wasn't just in its technology or its tactics, it was in its heart. They had been rejected, but they would never give up. Commander Elias Cade, though, remained more distant. His grief over the loss of Earth's orbital defense systems and the disastrous battle with the Regathi had never fully healed. The weight of his past failure hung over him like a shadow, and he was haunted by the faces of those he could not save. Yet he knew that humanity could not afford weakness. Every day he pushed himself harder, becoming more focused on the mission and less concerned with the ghosts of the past. But something was wrong. The silence that had descended on the galaxy after humanity's exile was suffocating. The Galactic Council, in its indifference, had cut all communication with Earth. The powerful alien fleets that once ruled the stars had turned their eyes away, and the galaxy seemed to have forgotten the humans' existence, until now. The signal had been clear, a warning from the stars. The Regathi were coming. The Regathi, once humanity's bitter enemy, were no ordinary race. They were a fierce, war-hungry species, their bloodlust unmatched by any other. The last time they had encountered humans, it had been a brutal skirmish that nearly escalated into an all-out war. The Council had intervened, but the Regathi had never forgotten the humans' audacity in standing against them. And now, they were coming. The humans' small fleet was far from ready to face the Regathi. They had been training, yes, but there was little experience in battle for most of the crew. However, they had something no other race in the galaxy had: unity. While alien species bickered and plotted, humans fought side by side. That bond, forged in desperation and exile, was a strength no one had anticipated. One day, a stranger arrived. Zera was unlike any alien the humans had ever encountered. She was a Silphar, a member of a peaceful species from a distant star system, known for their intelligence and neutrality in galactic affairs. But her arrival was not one of peace. With a heavy air of secrecy, she presented herself as a rogue agent, a defecting member of the Galactic Council. Her eyes held the weight of secrets, and her words carried the sharp edge of truth. She had come to offer humanity something invaluable: intel about the Regathi's next move. Her appearance, though unexpected, was not entirely out of place. There had always been whispers among the Council about dissenters, those who had begun questioning the treatment of humanity. Thyra claimed that not all factions in the Council agreed with the exile, but her offer of help came with a cost. She asked for something humanity could not afford to give: trust. "Trust me," she said in a soft, melodic voice. "The Regathi are not merely coming to destroy. They are hunting for something far worse, something they believe only you, humans, can stop." Cade's instincts flared. He didn't trust her, not yet, but the information she offered was too critical to ignore. Thyra spoke of a weapon, a cataclysmic force hidden deep within the Regathi's war fleet, capable of obliterating entire star systems. She claimed the Regathi had only one goal: to capture it, and with it, to end humanity once and for all. As Alicia and Cade debated Thyra's offer, the urgency grew. Humanity's fleet was still incomplete, their forces raw and untested. Yet the Regathi were on the move, their ships already converging on human territory, preparing for what could be the first strike of a brutal war. The tension was palpable. Humanity had no choice but to act, even without the guarantee of success. As Alicia stood on the bridge of their flagship, resolute, she stared out at the black expanse of space. The stars, once a symbol of hope, now felt cold and distant. "We're out of time," she whispered. "We can't hide anymore." Cade nodded, his jaw clenched in determination. "We fight. We have no other choice. As the first Regathi ships entered their system, humanity's Armada was ready. Small, but deadly, the fleet moved out from its hidden base, poised to take the fight to their enemies. The Regathi had underestimated them before. Now they would learn what it meant to face a species that refused to surrender. The battle for humanity's future had begun. Engagement hook. The battle ahead would test everything humanity had learned since their exile. But in the depths of space, a much greater danger lurked. The Regathi weren't the only threat to humanity's survival. And Syra's warnings, though dire, were only the beginning. The moment the first Regathi ships appeared in human space, the calm silence of the stars was shattered. Humanity's fleet, small and still in its infancy, sprang into action, a single unified force against the overwhelming might of the Regathi war machine. It was a battle of desperation, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Captain Alicia Hartwell stood at the helm of the Resolute, watching the massive Regathi ships drift into view. The Regathi were a terrifying sight. Hulking, brutal warships covered in jagged metallic plating, their gun turrets bristling like the teeth of a predator. Each ship was a fortress unto itself, brimming with weaponry capable of leveling entire planets. The odds were not in humanity's favor, and Alicia knew it. But if there was one thing she had learned in the depths of their exile, it was that humans would never be outmatched without a fight. "Ready all weapons," she ordered, her voice calm but resolute. She could feel the tension in the air as every human ship responded. Their weapons hummed to life, their engines roaring as they readied themselves for a battle none of them had ever anticipated. Commander Elias Cade stood by her side, eyes focused on the approaching enemy. His thoughts were clouded with doubt, but his experience had hardened him into a leader in the heat of combat. The failures of the past were gone. This was the present, and the present demanded action. "They've underestimated us," Cade muttered, though it was less to Alicia than to himself. "Let's make them regret it," she replied. The first shots were fired, and the battle erupted in a cacophony of sound and light. The Regathi, confident in their overwhelming numbers, launched their attack without hesitation. Massive beams of energy cut through space, illuminating the cold void in streaks of red and green. Their ships unleashed barrages of missiles and plasma fire, and the Resolute shuddered as it absorbed the first hits. The smaller human ships, agile and nimble, darted around the Regathi assaults, returning fire with laser cannons and torpedoes. For the first time in centuries, humans were not the hunted. They were the hunters. Despite the Regathi's overwhelming firepower, humanity's fleet fought with a ferocity that stunned their enemies. The human ships, although outclassed in terms of size and raw strength, had one thing the Regathi didn't: sheer willpower. They refused to back down. They fought as though their lives depended on it, because they did. Alicia barked orders over the comms, directing her fleet to coordinate fire and exploit the weaknesses in the Regathi formations. "Focus on their weak points," she commanded. "Their ships have massive energy cores in the aft sections. Take them out." Cade's voice came through the comms next, cold and tactical. "I'll lead a team to the rear of their flagship. We'll use the cloaking tech we developed. We hit them fast and hard." Alicia didn't need to say a word in response. She knew the risks Cade was taking, but in that moment, there was no other choice. They had to destroy the Regathi flagship. Now, the battle raged on, with both sides taking heavy casualties. Humanity's fleet was being battered, but the Regathi were not without their own losses. As the humans struck fast and maneuvered with precision, the Regathi began to realize their mistake. Humanity was not a fractured race of isolated colonies. They were a force that could stand together in the face of annihilation. The tide of the battle began to shift. Then came the moment that changed everything. Cade's team, cloaked and hidden from Regathi sensors, infiltrated the rear of the enemy flagship. In a daring maneuver, they launched a series of devastating strikes on the Regathi's energy core, piercing the massive warship's defenses with pinpoint accuracy. The Resolute joined in, sending a focused energy blast into the weak spot, and the Regethi flagship exploded in a blinding flash of light. A cheer erupted through the human fleet. The Regethi flagship, the heart of their force, was gone. But victory came at a price. As the flagship disintegrated, its destruction sent a shockwave throughout the battlefield. The remaining Regethi ships faltered momentarily, giving humanity a chance to regroup. But their retaliation was swift and furious. The Regethi were not known for retreating, and the battle was far from over. "We've got them on the ropes, Alicia." Cade's voice crackled through the comms, exhaustion in his tone. "But they won't give up so easily." Alicia's face was drawn, the weight of the battle settling over her like a cloud. They had struck a heavy blow to the Regethi, but there was no time to celebrate. The Regethi were regrouping, and they were angry. "We need to finish this," she said, her voice hard with determination. "If we don't, this war will never end." As the Regethi fleet reorganized, preparing to launch another wave of relentless fire, Alicia knew that the next step was crucial. They had taken down one of their greatest foes, but the war was just beginning. Humanity had won this battle, but the true test lay ahead. How much were they willing to sacrifice to ensure that they would not just survive, but thrive? Engagement hook. Just as humanity's fleet prepares for the next wave, a new signal bursts through the chaos of battle, a strange, cryptic transmission from an unknown source. Is it an ally, or something far darker? The answer could change everything. In the aftermath of humanity's unexpected victory, the galaxy stood still, silent, uncertain, and uneasy. The Regethi had been dealt a crippling blow, their flagship destroyed, and their forces scattered. But despite the victory, the weight of what had transpired began to sink in. Humanity, against all odds, had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with some of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy. And in the silence that followed the battle, a dangerous question hung in the air. What would the rest of the galaxy do next? The Galactic Council, composed of the most powerful and influential species in the galaxy, was in turmoil. The Council had once viewed humanity as a nascent race, too reckless to be trusted. Now, however, humanity had taken a bold, aggressive step, showing that they were not just an inconvenience, but a force to be reckoned with. The Council had exiled them in the first place, assuming the humans would cower under the weight of galactic law, but the Regethi's defeat proved that humanity could not be so easily silenced. Tensions rippled through the council chambers on the distant planet of Azanur, a world at the center of galactic diplomacy. The Sikher, an ancient and powerful race of merciless conquerors, were the first to speak. Their voice was low, guttural, full of disdain. Humanity has proved itself a threat. Their defiance is an act of war. The Shkur's representative, a towering figure draped in black armor, slammed his fist onto the table, rattling the holographic images of star maps that flickered in the air. His eyes, bloodshot and wild, glared at the other delegates. The Regethi were the first to be humiliated. They won't forgive this. We should act swiftly. Destroy them before they gain any more power. But the Silphar, a race known for their intelligence and neutrality, spoke up, their voice cool and measured. You speak of destruction as if it is the only option, but that will not solve the greater problem. Humanity's actions are a symptom of something larger. The question is, what comes next? The council chambers grew tense as the debate raged on. Some factions, like the Tolaran, who valued balance and diplomacy, called for caution. They knew that the Regethi were not the only threat to galactic peace. Others, like the Kratheri, a race of ancient warriors, saw humanity's victory as a call to arms, eager to see the galaxy shake beneath the weight of conflict. But it was the Illumir, a quiet but powerful race of beings known for their wisdom, who offered a solution that sent ripples of unease through the chamber. We must consider the larger implications of humanity's actions. The Regethi were only the first in line. There is something else, something far more dangerous, lurking in the shadows. The Elunar leader, a being with shimmering silver skin and bright eyes, gazed down at the holographic map of the galaxy. She was referring to the Architects, an ancient and long-forgotten race that had once shaped the galaxy with their unimaginable power. According to ancient texts, the Architects had vanished long before the current galactic order had even been established. But if their technology had survived, if remnants of their civilization were still out there, the Architects, one of the delegates muttered, disbelief creeping into their voice. Yes, the Elunar replied, her voice grave. The Architects' technology is far more advanced than anything we have ever seen. If it's true that their weapons are still active, humanity may have stumbled upon something ancient and terrible. If we do nothing, the Architects could return, and humanity could be the key to their revival. As the words hung in the air, a murmur of panic spread through the council. The Architects had been wiped out by their own creations millennia ago, their civilization falling to a catastrophic war. No one knew exactly what had happened, but the idea that their technology still existed, hidden in the dark corners of the galaxy, was enough to send shivers down the spines of every member of the council. Back on Earth, Captain Alicia Hartwell and Commander Elias Cade stood before a star chart, watching as the data from the Regathi battle filtered in. They were trying to piece together what the strange transmission, the cryptic signal from the battlefield, really meant. Cade's hands hovered over the interface, his mind racing through possibilities. "We were right to trust Xyra," Alicia said quietly, though the weight of her words pressed heavily on her chest. "But she didn't tell us everything. The Regathi came here to retrieve something tied to the Architects, and they'll keep coming until they get it." The truth of what humanity had stumbled upon, the remnants of the Architects, was not something the Council had prepared for. Now the stakes had been raised to unimaginable heights. Humanity had not only taken on the Regathi, but they had inadvertently placed themselves at the center of a galactic secret that could reshape the future. The Regathi, for all their ferocity, were only one piece of a much larger puzzle. And now, humanity had no choice but to confront it. Engagement hook. Just as humanity begins to brace itself for the storm that's about to hit, an encrypted transmission comes through. Xyra's voice, desperate and urgent. They found it. "The Architect's weapon is awakening. You're running out of time. Prepare for the worst. The galaxy is about to change again, and humanity may have just become the key to a power far beyond their understanding." The transmission from Xyra crackled through the comms, urgent and trembling with desperation. They found it. "The Architect's weapon is awakening. You're running out of time. Prepare for the worst." Captain Alicia Hartwell's hand gripped the edge of the console as the weight of the words settled over her like a crushing storm cloud. The Architects, the ancient, godlike species whose power had once shaped the entire galaxy. No one knew for sure what happened to them, or if they had even truly been destroyed, but the idea that their weapon could be reactivated was a terrifying thought. "Where is it?" Alicia demanded, her voice cold and steady, despite the chaos inside her mind. "Xyra, tell us where it is. We need coordinates." The response came in the form of a series of coordinates, followed by a chilling statement. "It's on a world that shouldn't exist anymore." Alicia's brow furrowed. A world that shouldn't exist. The Architects had left no trace of their civilization, no clear sign of what had become of them. The Regathi's quest for power had brought them to the remnants of something that could annihilate entire systems. And now, humanity was being pulled into it, whether they were ready or not. Commander Elias Cade stood beside Alicia, his face hard with resolve. He had always prided himself on his ability to think clearly under pressure, but even he could feel the looming sense of dread. The battle with the Regathi had proven that humanity could hold its ground, but this was different. "If the Architect's weapon is awakening, we need to stop it before it's too late," Cade said, his voice low. "But we don't know what we're up against. If their technology is still intact, we could be facing something that makes the Regethi look like child's play. Alicia met his gaze, her expression resolute. We don't have a choice. We fight, just like we've always fought. But this time, we fight for something bigger than survival. The human fleet, still reeling from the aftermath of the Regethi battle, quickly shifted focus. With Osiris coordinates locked in, the fleet set a course for the mysterious world. It was a barren planet, its surface pocked with ancient craters and deep scars, as though the very land had been ravaged by some unknown cataclysm. But what lay beneath its crust was what truly terrified them. As they approached the planet, a deep, humming vibration began to ripple through space, a sensation so powerful that it almost seemed to reach into the minds of the crew. It was as though the planet itself was alive, awakening from a long, deep slumber. "We're close," Alicia murmured, her eyes scanning the view screen. The planet loomed ahead, its surface dark and foreboding. "Cade, have we made contact with the Regethi? Are they here?" Cade's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the fleet's sensors. "Not yet, but they're not far behind. They'll be here soon." The weight of the moment was suffocating. The Regethi, still smarting from their defeat, had clearly realized what humanity was doing. They would stop at nothing to claim the Architect's weapon for themselves. "We'll have to move fast," Alicia said, her tone tight. "Prepare teams to land. We're going down to the surface." The fleet's descent to the planet's surface was as uneasy as it was slow. The gravitational pull was odd, almost unnatural, as if the planet itself was reacting to their presence. The closer they got, the more intense the vibrations became. It was as if something beneath the planet's crust was resonating with the human ships, drawing them in like moths to a flame. Incoming. A sudden alarm blared throughout the fleet. Regethi ships closing in. Fast. The calm before the storm evaporated in an instant. The Regethi were here, and they weren't wasting any time. "We have to get down there," Cade said, his voice full of urgency. "They can't get to it first." Alicia didn't hesitate. "We fight. We land, we secure the surface, and we make sure they don't reach the weapon. Prepare for combat." As the human ships broke through the atmosphere, the ground below seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The planet's surface was a maze of jagged mountains and deep ravines, giving the Regethi fleet the perfect cover to launch an ambush. But humanity had no choice but to push forward. They had already come too far to back down. Alicia stood, gripping the console as their ship descended through the thick clouds toward the planet's surface. Her mind raced. They were on the brink of something monumental, but what they were about to face could very well destroy them all. The landscape below was nothing like the peaceful worlds humanity had dreamed of colonizing. Instead, it was a world steeped in ancient horror, a land scared by the ghosts of the past. And the weapon that lay hidden beneath its surface was no ordinary tool of destruction. It was something far more sinister. It was the Architect's legacy, and it had been waiting for centuries, just beneath their feet. And soon, humanity would have to face it. Engagement hook. As the human forces prepare to land on the haunted world, a deep, echoing voice, artificial, mechanical, booms across their comms. "You are too late. The Architect's legacy will be claimed by those who are worthy. Prepare to face your doom." The eerie voice echoed through the comms, sending a chill down the spines of every human aboard the fleet. It was mechanical, cold, and utterly alien. "You are too late. The Architect's legacy will be claimed by those who are worthy. Prepare to face your doom." Alicia Hartwell's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told her to fight, to push forward and prove the galaxy wrong, to show them that humanity would not be cowed or crushed under the weight of an ancient power. But the voice, the sheer presence of it, made her question everything. What had they truly stumbled upon? The planet below them seemed to pulse, as though the land itself was breathing in tandem with the voice. Deep within its cracked surface, something immense stirred, disturbed by the arrival of the human fleet. The vibrations through space grew more intense, shaking their ships and rattling their nerves. "Captain, we've breached the atmosphere," Commander Elias Cade said, his voice strained. "We're getting interference from the planet's surface. Sensors are overloaded. We can't pinpoint the exact location of the weapon, but we're close." Alicia looked out the view screen as their ship began to descend further, the barren landscape stretching out below them. Jagged mountains, deep ravines, and strange, geometric structures littered the surface, traces of an ancient civilization that once commanded unimaginable power. The feeling in the air was palpable. Something was waiting for them. The Regathi were close. Alicia could feel it in the pit of her stomach. "We need to get boots on the ground, now," Alicia said, snapping her attention back to the mission at hand. "We land, secure the perimeter, and locate the weapon. We can't afford to wait for the Regathi to find it first." The human ships descended into the alien terrain, the landing craft shaking violently as they approached their designated drop zones. The ground below seemed to reach upward like the outstretched claws of a slumbering beast. It was as though the planet itself was alive, warning them to turn back. But humanity had come too far. With a soft thud, the landing craft touched down on the cracked surface. The hatch opened, and Alicia's boots hit the ground with a resounding crunch. The air was thin, dry, and full of the scent of ancient decay. She could see the flickering remnants of what had once been a vast, futuristic city, now crumbled into ruin, overtaken by the ravages of time. Behind her, the rest of the team followed suit, a mix of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, all prepared to face whatever the planet had in store. Cade was already scanning the environment, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the surroundings. "This place is ancient," Cade muttered, "but it feels wrong. There's a resonance here, something off." Alicia nodded, feeling it too. The ground beneath their feet seemed to hum, as if it were reacting to their presence, to their intrusion. There were no visible signs of life, no creatures, no vegetation. Just a vast, alien silence broken only by the sound of their footsteps. Suddenly, the ground trembled. What was that? A soldier barked, his weapon raised in an instant. Alicia's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't an ordinary tremor. It was something deliberate, as though the planet itself had woken and was now moving to meet them. The distant mountain ranges began to glow faintly with an unnatural light, and Alicia's breath caught in her throat. "Captain, we've got movement." Cade's voice was sharp, urgent. "The Regathi. They're landing just outside the perimeter. They're not wasting any time." The battle was about to begin. But this time, it wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the weapon that could change the fate of the galaxy. The Regathi, with their war-hungry eyes, were here for the same thing the humans had come for. And Alicia knew the stakes were higher than ever before. Whoever controlled the weapon would have the power to reshape the galaxy, for better or for worse. Alicia looked to the sky as distant flashes of light illuminated the horizon. Regathi ships were descending, their forms massive and imposing, cutting through the barren air with military precision. The Regathi would not hesitate. They were ruthless, efficient, and they believed this weapon was their right to claim. "We need to get to the weapon before they do," Alicia ordered. "We can't let them take it." The team quickly moved out, advancing toward the mountain range, their weapons drawn. But the closer they got, the more the ground seemed to shift beneath them. Strange geometric patterns began to emerge from the earth, lines of glowing energy that seemed to pulse in time with their every movement. It was as though the very planet was alive, reacting to their presence, guiding them, or perhaps warning them. Then the ground split open before them, revealing a massive doorway carved into the rock, bathed in an eerie blue light. It was ancient, alien, and unmistakably architect in design. The weapon was inside. But as they moved toward the entrance, a shrill mechanical screech pierced the air. The Regathi had arrived. They were too late. Alicia's grip tightened around her weapon. The door to the architect's legacy was open, and there would be no turning back. Engagement hook, Just as humanity prepares to enter the heart of the Architect's weapon, an explosion rocks the landscape, echoing across the mountains. Regethi forces have arrived in full force. A battle for control of the weapon has begun, and humanity must now face the unimaginable consequences of unlocking an ancient power they were never meant to find. The explosion reverberated through the desolate landscape, sending a cloud of dust and debris into the air. The Regethi forces had arrived in full force, their monstrous warships landing just outside the ancient structure, their boots hitting the cracked ground with the sound of inevitability. The battle for the Architect's weapon was about to begin in earnest. "Move out," Alicia Hartwell shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. She raised her weapon, signaling her team forward. The ground trembled beneath their feet as they sprinted toward the ancient doorway, the energy pulse from the planet's surface growing stronger with each passing second. The Regethi were not far behind, and their relentless pursuit of the weapon would stop at nothing. Regethi forces incoming from the east. Cade's voice rang out over the comms. "Prepare for engagement." The humans split into smaller teams, taking cover behind the massive rock formations that dotted the landscape. The Regethi, heavily armored and armed with weapons capable of leveling entire cities, would be a fierce opponent. But the humans had something the Regethi didn't: determination. Alicia could see it in the eyes of her crew. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of their species. The first shots were exchanged. Plasma beams shot across the barren ground, splintering rocks and sending explosions ripping through the air. Alicia's team moved with precision, their training kicking in as they returned fire, picking off Regethi soldiers from a distance. The Regethi were relentless, charging forward in disciplined waves, their heavy weaponry devastating everything in its path. But despite the ferocity of their attack, the humans held their ground. Cade led a group of soldiers to the right flank, covering the main assault as Alicia and her team pressed toward the doorway, the faint blue glow beckoning them closer. "We're almost there. Keep moving," Alicia ordered, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the ancient weapon growing stronger, an unnatural pull in the air, as if the planet itself was guiding them to it. The Regethi forces were closing in, but they wouldn't stop humanity from reaching their goal. Another explosion rocked the battlefield, and Alicia's comms crackled with the voice of one of her lieutenants. "We've lost contact with the west perimeter. They're coming from all sides." "Fall back. Regroup at the entrance," Alicia barked, her eyes scanning the battlefield. The Regethi were relentless, but she knew the stakes had never been higher. If they didn't reach the Architect's weapon first, the Regethi would have it, and that would mean the end for humanity and every other species in the galaxy. They couldn't afford to fail. With a forceful push, Alicia and her team reached the entrance of the ancient structure. The blue light was now blinding, illuminating the ruins around them. The door, carved with symbols and glyphs that were incomprehensible to any human, stood ajar, as if waiting for them. The Regethi were closing in, and the fight was now a desperate race against time. "We're in. Let's move now," Alicia shouted, pulling her team inside. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud, sealing them off from the chaos outside. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with power. The walls were lined with ancient tech, glowing faintly, a stark contrast to the desolation of the surface. At the heart of the structure, a massive device stood, a towering structure of metal, glass, and energy, pulsing with an almost sentient intelligence. This was it, the Architect's weapon. But it wasn't just a weapon, it was a living, breathing force. The moment Alicia laid eyes on it, she could feel it tugging at her mind, whispering secrets that defied understanding. The power it held was intoxicating, and it took every ounce of Alicia's willpower not to reach out to it. "Is it sentient?" Cade asked, his voice filled with awe and terror. He stood next to her, his eyes wide as he studied the structure. "I don't know," Alicia replied, her voice quiet. "But we need to control it, or we'll all be dead." Suddenly, The lights inside the structure flickered, and the hum of the device grew louder, resonating through their bones. The planet beneath their feet seemed to pulse in response. It was awakening. They had triggered something far beyond their understanding. Outside, the Regethi forces had breached the entrance, their roars echoing through the cavernous halls of the structure. They were closing in, desperate to seize control of the weapon. But the moment they stepped foot inside, the entire place seemed to come alive, the walls glowing brighter, the air crackling with energy. "This is it. We fight for humanity's future," Alicia said, her voice filled with unyielding determination. The Regethi were closing in fast. There was no more time for hesitation. Alicia stepped forward, moving toward the heart of the weapon. Her fingers brushed against the cool surface of the device, and the air crackled with power. The weapon responded, a deep pulse of energy shooting out in all directions, knocking back the Regethi who had followed them into the structure. The battle was about to reach its climax. Whoever controlled the weapon would decide the fate of the galaxy. Engagement hook. As Alicia and her team prepare to control the weapon, an unexpected voice booms through the structure's comms. Zyra's voice, distorted and urgent. "You've unleashed something far worse than the Regethi. The Architect's legacy is more than just a weapon. It's a harbinger of the end. Stop now, or everyone will perish." The true nature of the Architect's weapon is revealed, and humanity is left with a devastating choice. Zyra's warning echoed through the chamber, vibrating off the ancient walls and sending a shiver down Alicia's spine. "You've unleashed something far worse than the Regethi. The Architect's legacy is more than just a weapon. It's a harbinger of the end. Stop now, or everyone will perish." Alicia's mind raced as the weight of Zyra's words sank in. The weapon, this ancient, incomprehensible machine that pulsed with an energy far beyond anything humanity had encountered, was not just a tool of destruction. It was something more, something far more dangerous. What had they awakened? Outside the chamber, the Regethi forces were closing in, their weapons trained on the doorway, their growls of rage growing louder. They would stop at nothing to claim the weapon, to use it as a tool of domination, to rewrite the balance of the galaxy in their image. But now, Alicia understood that their desire for the weapon could lead to something far worse than even their brutal conquest. "We need to shut it down." Cade's voice was grim, his eyes scanning the device, which was now humming louder, sending waves of energy through the chamber like a beating heart. The air crackled with raw power. "How?" Alicia's voice was tight with frustration. She moved closer to the structure, her fingers hovering over the glowing surfaces, but it felt as if the device was alive, rejecting her touch. No manual controls, no obvious way to deactivate it. It was as though the weapon itself had chosen to awaken only in the face of conflict. The Regethi were just outside, their heavy footsteps reverberating through the stone walls. The pressure was mounting. Time was running out. "Alicia, we can't just let it keep charging. It's too dangerous." Cade's face was tight with concern, his usually calm demeanor fraying at the edges. "We need to find a way to disable it, or it's going to destroy everything." Alicia's gaze locked on the device. She had fought for humanity's survival on countless battlefields, but this felt different. This wasn't a war of physical strength or firepower. It was something beyond her understanding. She could feel the power of the Architects coursing through the air, and it whispered to her in strange, alien fragments. "Control it. Harness it. Become more than what you are." But Alicia wasn't here to become something more. She was here to protect humanity. "We don't have time to figure it out. We need to make a choice," Alicia said, her voice low. Her hand trembled as she reached for the control panel, half expecting the device to retaliate. But there was something in her, a deep primal instinct, telling her to press on, to defy the unknown and fight for her people. Then it happened. The device shifted. Its energy pulsed outwards, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The Regethi had arrived, storming into the room with weapons raised, intent on taking the device for themselves. "No," Alicia shouted, raising her weapon as she turned to face the oncoming assault. Her team braced for impact, but then the ground beneath them buckled. The weapon's pulse had reached a fever pitch, sending a blinding wave of energy outward. Alicia barely had time to react as the force blasted everyone back, sending her crashing to the ground. When the light subsided, the room was still. Alicia shook her head, trying to clear the ringing in her ears. She looked up to see the Regathi soldiers lying motionless on the ground, their bodies frozen in place. The power of the weapon was overwhelming, but it had only incapacitated them, not destroyed them. For a brief moment, the chamber was silent. Alicia's team picked themselves up, stunned but alive. The weapon's pulse had receded, but now, the true horror of its potential became clear. The Regathi were incapacitated, but the weapon's power had done more than that. It had altered the battlefield. The walls, the floors, and even the air around them were now tinged with the alien energy, the legacy of the architects. Alicia stepped forward, her mind clearer than it had been in days. She understood now. This wasn't just a weapon to destroy enemies. This was a force that could change the very fabric of existence. The architects had designed it to control, to reshape civilizations. But if it fell into the wrong hands, it could undo everything. She turned to Cade. "We need to shut it down." Her voice was firm, but a part of her was terrified that even attempting to shut it off could bring about its catastrophic consequences. The device might not let them. Or worse, it might react in ways they couldn't predict. "How?" Cade asked, his voice urgent but calm. He was ready to fight, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's survival. Alicia took a deep breath. The room, the planet, and the weapon itself were all alive with potential. She had to make the choice that would preserve the future of her species, and with it, the galaxies. She glanced back at the Regathi, now stirring but still incapacitated. She turned back to the weapon. Then her hand pressed down on the control panel. "This is it," she whispered. The weapon's hum grew louder, vibrating the very air around them. The chamber seemed to quake, as if it were about to collapse, and the very ground beneath them seemed to protest her decision. Suddenly, the light flickered, then blinked out entirely. And then, nothing. Engagement hook. The weapon's power seemed to fade, leaving the room in a suffocating, unnatural silence. But the Regathi were stirring, now free from the device's influence. And Alicia knew, deep down, that the battle for the architect's legacy wasn't over. The weapon may have been deactivated, but its influence was far from gone.